Rachel Porter used to believe loyalty would eventually speak for itself. For 7 years, she poured everything into her family's company, Porter and Daughters. Long nights, missed birthdays, burnout hidden behind polished presentations and black coffee. She built client relationships from scratch, fixed disasters before anyone noticed them, and helped turn a regional business into a national success. And yet, on a cold Wednesday morning, she learned something painful. Hard work does not always guarantee recognition. Rachel walked into the conference room expecting celebration after closing the biggest expansion deal of her career. Instead, she found her father, her younger brother Evan, and the company attorney gathered around the table. The atmosphere felt rehearsed. Her father smiled carefully, the way people do when they know they are about to hurt you but still want to appear kind. "Rachel," he said softly, "we were going to tell you." Then the attorney slid a thick envelope across the table to Evan. "Congratulations. You are now the majority shareholder of Porter and Daughters." Rachel didn't react immediately. She simply stared at the company name printed across the documents, Porter and Daughters. The irony almost made her laugh. She had spent most of her adult life keeping that business alive. She built internal systems, managed crises, protected client relationships, and carried responsibilities no one else wanted. But when it came time to choose a successor, the decision had already been made behind closed doors. No discussion, no vote, no acknowledgement. She finally asked the only question that mattered. "Why him?" Her father hesitated before answering. "You've been incredible, but Evan has more leadership energy." Leadership energy. That was the phrase they chose to explain away 7 years of sacrifice. Not experience, not performance, not loyalty, just leadership energy. Rachel nodded once, stood up, and quietly walked out of the room. She didn't cry in the elevator. She didn't scream in the parking lot. She simply drove home in silence while something inside her finally settled into clarity. She had never been treated like the future of the company, only the support system behind it. Growing up, the imbalance had always existed. Evan was celebrated for potential. Rachel was expected to prove herself repeatedly. If Evan failed, the family called it growth. If Rachel stumbled, even slightly, it became disappointment. When Evan changed careers 3 times, their parents praised his ambition. When Rachel missed a single marketing deadline while recovering from food poisoning in a hospital bed, her mother called it unprofessional. Still, Rachel stayed loyal. She told herself family businesses were complicated. She convinced herself her dedication would eventually matter. She believed that if she worked hard enough, one day they would finally see her value. But they never did. Not until she left. And the moment she walked away, the company began to shake. The real foundation of Porter and Daughters had never been flashy presentations or family legacy. It had been Rachel quietly holding everything together behind the scenes. Most importantly, it had been her relationships, especially one. Veronica Lane, CEO of Astrolux Design, had trusted Rachel for years. Their partnership helped secure some of the company's biggest contracts. 3 days after resigning, Rachel invited Veronica to coffee. The moment Rachel sat down, Veronica looked at her carefully and asked, "They gave it to Evan, didn't they?" Rachel nodded. Veronica sighed deeply. They just lost the best thing they had. Over coffee, Rachel learned the chaos had already started. Emails were being ignored. Client reports were late. Evan had tried to streamline systems he didn't fully understand. Relationships Rachel had spent years nurturing were already beginning to crack. Then Veronica said something that changed everything. "If you ever build your own company," she said, "I'm coming with you." For the first time in years, Rachel felt something unfamiliar. Possibility, not revenge, not bitterness, freedom. That weekend, she quietly registered a new business, Porter Legacy Consulting, small, private, entirely hers. Meanwhile, the collapse inside Porter and Daughters accelerated. Clients started leaving one by one, vendors complained, employees resigned, internal systems failed because the person who designed them was no longer there to hold them together. Then came the moment that sent shockwaves through the company. Veronica Lane officially terminated her contracts with Porter and Daughters and transferred her business to Rachel's new firm. Rachel's father called immediately. She let the phone ring. Again and again. Finally, he sent a text. "We need to talk." Rachel stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "I thought Evan had leadership energy." Then she turned off her phone and went for a walk. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful. Within weeks, Rachel's business began growing faster than she expected. Former clients reached out privately. Industry contacts recommended her name. Companies that once overlooked her now wanted meetings, not because of sympathy, because she was excellent at what she did, and now everyone could finally see it clearly. Meanwhile, Porter and Daughters continued unraveling. Revenue dropped, major accounts disappeared, internal morale collapsed. Rachel's parents suddenly changed their tone. The same people who once dismissed her contributions now spoke carefully, almost desperately. Her mother called one evening, voice unusually soft. "Sweetheart," she said, "the company needs you." Rachel sat quietly for a moment before answering. "No," she replied gently. "The company needed me years ago. You just didn't realize it." That sentence stayed with her long after the call ended. Because it wasn't anger anymore, it was truth. And truth has a way of bringing peace once you stop fighting it. Months later, Rachel received an offer from a competing firm. Not just a job, but leadership, equity, and autonomy. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't asking her to support another person's vision. They were investing in hers. She accepted. Her new office wasn't extravagant, but it represented something priceless. Ownership. Not just financial ownership, personal ownership of her time, her talent, her future. As Rachel's reputation grew, she started speaking publicly about leadership, burnout, and invisible labor inside family systems and workplaces. Her story resonated with people who had spent years feeling unseen, especially women. Messages poured in from strangers. "I thought I was the only one. You helped me leave a toxic workplace. You reminded me my value doesn't disappear just because someone refuses to acknowledge it." Rachel realized her story had become bigger than business. It was about self-worth, about recognizing the difference between loyalty and self-erasure, about understanding that success means very little if it costs your identity. 1 year later, Rachel was invited to speak at a major industry gala on the topic, Legacy Reimagined. She walked onto the stage wearing a navy suit and quiet confidence. No need to prove herself anymore. No need to beg for recognition. She looked out at the audience of executives, founders, and entrepreneurs and said, "Sometimes legacy isn't what you inherit. Sometimes it's what you survive. And sometimes the greatest thing you can build is a life that no longer requires someone else's permission." The room fell silent. Then came applause. Long, warm, real. As Rachel stepped off stage, she noticed someone standing near the back exit. Her father, older now, tired, quiet. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he nodded once, not as a boss, not as a man protecting tradition, but as a father finally realizing what he almost lost. Later that night, Rachel received a short email. "Your grandfather would have been proud. No signature, none needed." Rachel read the message once, smiled softly, and closed her laptop. Because after all those years, she no longer needed approval to feel complete. Today, Porter Legacy Consulting employs a growing team of women from different backgrounds. Single mothers, first-generation graduates, former assistants who were told they weren't leadership material. Now they lead departments, negotiate major contracts, build careers on respect instead of exhaustion. Rachel often tells them the same thing. You do not have to shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's idea of leadership. And every time she says it, she remembers the woman she used to be, the one sitting silently in boardrooms, hoping hard work alone would finally make people see her. Now she understands something better. The people who overlook you are not the ones who define your worth. You do. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from the table that never truly valued you and build your own instead.